Hello, everybody. Welcome to Back to School Night. I hope you could all read this slide okay. If you can't, you might want to ask your student to come by, your child. They now should know how to read this. But if you can't read this is my contact information, by the way, so feel free to contact me at any time. But if you can't read it, I have a translated version for you. This is the Java programming class for Lynbrook High School, September 2022. Actually, I have another name for this class. It's really, I call it more like Intro to Computer Science, Intro to Python and Java, because in this class, as I will talk about, we learn about both how to program in Python and Java. So welcome. I will go through an introduction of myself. I will talk a little bit about the course, the curriculum that we go over, and I will then talk about really how your student can succeed in this class. So my contact information now in more readable form. This is my email, mark_Kwong. You can't see this underscore right there, at fuhsd.org. Here's the phone number. This is the school's phone number. Please contact me at any time, but really I think email is best. I don't think anybody really has called me in any time I've been at Lynbrook. I will respond very promptly to any sort of emails, and if you actually would like to meet face to face, we will find a time to get together. So let me introduce a little bit about myself. I've been in the Valley since 1989. I graduated from Berkeley with my master's in computer science in '89, and I had also gone to Berkeley with an electrical engineering computer science degree in '87. I then graduated from San Jose State in 2012 with my teaching credential. My teaching credential was actually in math, and I used to teach math for the first 6 years at Lynbrook. I worked at multiple chip companies. I worked at a company called LSI, which then I worked at a company called Magnum Semiconductor. Then I worked at a company called Cavium Networks. None of these exist any longer. Right at the end of my career in the industry, I worked at Cavium Networks, and about 10 years ago, I started working at Lynbrook. As I mentioned, first as a math teacher, and now I teach computer science. This is now my 10th year here. So the Java class, Java programming, the real only prerequisites is Algebra 1. It really helps if your student has a good understanding of just the abstract nature of variables, and because we use variables all the time in Java, so that's an important concept to really feel comfortable with. This class will prepare you well if your child wants to continue on with AP Comp Sci A. Lynbrook also offers another AP course. It's called AP CS Principles, and this course is actually more of an intro class as well. So we, in some sense, at Lynbrook, we have two intro classes to computer science. We have this intro class here. This is Java programming, and then we have AP CS Principles, which is another intro to CS. Java programming is, by its name, much more focused on just programming, whereas APCS Principles covers programming, but it also covers other topics like internet and browser and security, and it doesn't go as heavy and deep into programming either. So in some ways, from a preparation standpoint, this Java class prepares you for APCS Comp Sci A, whereas it would be a much bigger jump to go from APCS Principles directly into AP Comp Sci A. And actually, at Lynbrook, we really technically only say you should take one of these two AP courses at Lynbrook during the student's kind of four-year career. So there's three different categories. We have assignments, labs, which are 40%, tests and quizzes, which are 45%, and then final projects, which are 15%. Now, in regards to test and quizzes, I do want to make sure you know that I do have a retake policy for tests and quizzes. So if your student scores below a 75%, they can earn up to a 75% if they come to me and talk to me about a retake. Late work on assignment and labs, there is a 10% per day penalty on late work, but it doesn't go any lower than 50%. So if they do late work up to a month later, they could still turn it in and get 50% credit. So curriculum-wise, as I mentioned, we cover Python and Java. Actually, we start off, or this is a programming class that expects nothing of your student in terms of prior CS knowledge, prior programming knowledge. The goal by the end of the class is that your student knows how to kind of think in a programming-like way, how to create programs that are not necessarily Python or Java, but just to think like a programmer thinks. So we actually finished this basic first unit, a computer history, computer foundation unit, where we talk a little bit about what is a computer, what's inside a computer. And then we're just starting now. We're going to start into Python this week now. And we actually, a few years ago, we never taught Python before, but then we introduced Python into the curriculum because, Python is a very popular language nowadays. It's taught by a lot of high schools and colleges as the first language to be learned, even before Java. So we decided to adopt that as well. So when we learn Python, we learn about all sorts of different basic data types and conditionals and ways to iterate. And we talk about functions, and we talk about basic object-oriented programming and how to make objects and classes. And then we finish the Python unit actually all the way into March with a big Python project. Then we switch gears into Java, and really what we do is we learn basically the differences, how we learn the different language constructs. How do you do a conditional in Java versus Python? What are the small differences? There's really, I'll say, fairly minor differences from Java or from Python to Java. So what we're doing is we're learning the differences of each language. And we find that the transition from Python to Java is actually quite smooth and comfortable for students. And then we end the year with a Java project. So that's the curriculum for the year. There is no book that we use for Python or for Java. For Python, we actually use this online book called Runestone, and it's a really wonderful book. I really like the way it's done. It's a 100% browser-based, and so all your student needs is a Chromebook or basically some sort of browser-type device. The great thing about it is that it's an interactive textbook, and for programming, I think this is just a fantastic feature. It allows you to do the reading and then type down in this box here and experiment. You can type something in here, you can run it, modify a few numbers, run it again, basically experiment. You learn by doing, and a lot of textbooks are just all about reading, and it's really hard to absorb it unless you practice it right away. And so the really cool and wonderful thing about this textbook is you read a little bit and you practice it right away. And the more your student just plays around with whatever they've read, the better it is. So I just encourage your student just to really take advantage of this interactive textbook. I really think it's a marvelous way of understanding what you have read right away. So yeah, student expectation is to read and to practice as they read. I know, I give reading assignments to students and they just have to kind of go through it all, and basically they get points for just pushing all the buttons. And I know that there is this temptation of just basically pushing buttons. And you push the buttons and you score a point. That's really not the concept or the intention. The real intention is to read it, digest it, to really play around with it and discover things by playing around with it. And so that's the goal. So student expectations is just to be productive in class. We have quite a bit of lab time to do the reading and to do exercises. Some of your students might get most of the work done in class. Some of your students, you know, if programming is brand new, maybe it might take a little longer. So it really depends. But bottom line, have them ask me questions, have them seek out help. We have different ways of getting help. We have tutorials on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays now. And email, just email. Your student can always email me any day, anytime. I might not answer it right away, but typically I will give a 24-hour response to questions about work that they might be doing. So yeah, email is really a good way of getting help as well. Even if your student isn't comfortable in talking and asking help that way, there's multiple ways of inquiring. So that's the back to school night. If you have any questions, please contact me at mark_kwong@fuhsd.org. I wish your student the best, and I hope that they have a fun time and they really succeed a lot in this class.